The tragic cycle repeats itself once more, as we bear witness to a familiar scene. A white man, Deputy Sean Grayson of the Sangamon County Sheriff's Department, fueled by hatred and violence, taking the life of yet another black woman. This time, it is Sonya Massey who falls victim to his prejudice and bigotry. As he raises his arm adorned with symbols of oppression and hate, including grotesque Totenkopf tattoos that proudly display his allegiance to white supremacy, we are reminded of the harsh reality that still surrounds us. Totenkopf, translated to death's head or skull, was once used as a symbol by the Nazi regime and became synonymous with the Schutzstaffel, SS, and their horrific actions during the Holocaust. Despite this dark history, the symbol has been resurrected by neo-Nazis and other white supremacists, continuing its legacy of bloodshed and inhumanity. Sadly, this symbol is not uncommon among those who hide behind their badges in law enforcement, like Deputy Sean Grayson, the race soldier disguised as a sheriff's deputy who is now facing murder charges for taking Sonya Massey's life. His partner also had a tattoo associated with white supremacist groups, a Viking calendar often adopted by Nazis. It's all just another manifestation of white supremacy within our society. But what many may have missed while watching the body cam footage of these officers entering Massey's home were their blatant displays of hate through their tattoos. While one had a Viking calendar, Deputy Sean Grayson proudly displayed Totenkopf skulls on his arm, a clear association with neo-Nazis. In their twisted world, targeting and harming innocent, unarmed black individuals is seen as an initiation into their ranks. And unfortunately, this mentality is not only prevalent, but protected within law enforcement due to its deep-seated systemic racism. The double standard runs deep in this country. When a black person dares to speak out against racism and discrimination, their words are twisted and labeled as hate speech, met with swift and harsh punishment. Yet, when it comes to the escalating violence towards Asian people, even the most minor altercation is deemed a hate crime. Meanwhile, black people are left to fend for themselves as targets of white supremacy, with their attackers often being hailed as heroes within their own racist circles. Take the recent murder of Sonya Massey, for example. Her brutal killing was celebrated by white supremacists as a rite of passage, a way to climb the ranks within their sick ideology. These race soldiers commit these atrocities with the knowledge that they will likely not face consequences from their fellow officers, who are also deeply ingrained in these white supremacist beliefs. Our tax dollars continue to fund these murderous gangs disguised as law enforcement, while innocent black lives are taken without consequence. But make no mistake, these killers do not act alone. They strategically plan and execute their attacks, knowing exactly where and when to strike without drawing attention from other units or authorities. This is because they have infiltrated law enforcement at every level, turning those sworn to protect us into accomplices in our own deaths. It's a horrifying truth that we cannot ignore any longer. We must demand change before more innocent lives are lost at the hands of those tasked with keeping us safe. This is America's legacy, a country built on white supremacy and maintained by law enforcement embedded with its destructive ideologies. Until we acknowledge and dismantle these foundations, we can only expect more bloodshed and injustice. But the time for playing with this reality is over. We must take action now before it's too late. Welcome to No Tears for Black Girls. Sonya Massey, a 36-year-old black woman from Springfield, Illinois, was in fear for her life when she did what society has taught her to do: call the police. In the early hours of July 6, 2024, Massey, an unarmed mother and paranoid schizophrenic, called 911 to report a potential intruder near her home. Two sheriff's deputies responded to the call at around 12:50 a.m., and what happened next can only be described as chaotic and violent. According to court documents, Massey was calm but unwell when the two deputies, one of them being Sean Grayson, an ex-Army veteran with a history of changing law enforcement jobs, arrived at her doorstep. However, things quickly took a turn for the worst once they entered her home. Massey's daughter, who witnessed the events unfold, revealed that Grayson aggressively confronted her mother while she was boiling water in the kitchen. Despite knowing about Massey's condition, Grayson proceeded to scream and brandish his firearm, threatening to shoot her in the face. In a body camera video released to the public, Grayson can be heard shouting profanities and making derogatory remarks towards Massey as she attempted to seek cover. Eventually, he shot her point blank in the face while she had her hands up and surrendered. The father of Sonya Massey speaks out after viewing the disturbing body cam footage of his daughter's fatal encounter with a sheriff's deputy. He describes the footage as horrible and heart-wrenching, but also acknowledges that without it, they may have never known what truly happened to her. The family was under the impression that Sonya had been killed by an intruder, but the footage revealed that it was a police shooting. In the video, we see two deputies arriving at Sonya's home, only to be met with her telling them she rebukes them in the name of Jesus. What happens next is shocking. One of the deputies threatens her and then fatally shoots her after she attempts to remove a pot from the stove. When asked about her words, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus," her father believes she feared for her life and had some sort of premonition. This tragedy has left behind two children and a grieving family who are struggling day by day. After the footage was released, President Joe Biden condemned Sonya's killing and applauded the decision to charge the deputy with murder. Against a backdrop of racial injustice and police brutality, Sonya's tragic death at the hands of an officer has sparked outrage and calls for change. In a statement, President Biden expressed his condolences and urged Congress to pass the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. The family's lawyer, Ben Crump, pledged to fight for justice as they navigate through a flawed justice system. Meanwhile, the officer responsible is facing serious charges and being held without bond. As the case unfolds, let us remember Sonya and all those who have lost their lives due to systemic racism and demand accountability for those in positions of power. The official statement from the sheriff's office claims that shots were fired during a struggle, resulting in Massey being fatally wounded. But damning evidence from court documents lays bare the truth. Grayson intentionally withheld medical aid for Massey and even discouraged colleagues from helping her. Grayson, a former deputy who now stands charged with the murder of Sonya Massey, was not dishonorably discharged from the U.S. Army. However, his DD Form 214 tells a very different story, one of serious misconduct that led to his early removal before his term of service was up. According to Anthony Giotto, a former Air Force prosecutor now teaching law at the University of Illinois, this type of discharge usually suggests a misdemeanor offense in civilian life and rarely results in a court-martial. Yet Grayson's defense attorney, Daniel Fultz, has refused to address the specifics of his Army discharge, instead claiming an honorable discharge after 3 years. Yet again, official documentation paints a vastly different picture. This general discharge, granted under honorable conditions, serves as a warning to any future employer. And while this may be concerning on its own, Giotto argues that the real red flag lies in the unspoken details of Grayson's misconduct. The Kansas Bureau of Investigation confirms that Grayson has no prior convictions in the state where he served and was discharged from the Army. However, their records fail to reflect the troubling actions that ultimately led to Massey's tragic death, casting doubt on Grayson's true intentions. After being indicted by a grand jury for first-degree murder, Grayson was subsequently removed from his position at the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office. Despite pleas from Massey's father for justice and reform, Grayson was denied pretrial release on bond. Unfortunately, this is yet another harrowing example of police brutality and systemic flaws within our justice system. It serves as a damning reminder that Black lives continue to be undervalued and endangered by those sworn to protect them. We must demand accountability and tangible reforms from those in positions of power, for the sake of all victims like Sonya Massey, who deserve to live without fear of violence or injustice. Recent revelations have uncovered that prior to joining law enforcement, Sean Grayson was discharged from the Army for serious misconduct. Military records reveal that he served as a wheeled vehicle mechanic at Fort Riley until 2016, when he was let go for a serious offense. While specific details are restricted under Department of Defense policies, it can be assumed that Grayson's actions were equivalent to a civilian offense, punishable by at least 1 year of imprisonment. This raises questions about whether Grayson has a history of arrests or charges that were later dropped, sent to diversion programs, or resulted in no conviction. The lack of transparency only adds to the growing concerns surrounding Massey's tragic death and the urgent need for accountability within our justice system. The connections between law enforcement and former serviceman Sean Grayson were discovered by Invisible Institute, Illinois Public Media, and the Investigative Reporting Workshop after extensive investigations. These agencies contacted local authorities near Fort Riley, where Grayson served, in an attempt to uncover any past interactions with him. The response was far from satisfactory. The records show that the Riley County Police Department had only encountered Grayson once, in 2015, when he collided with a deer while driving his truck. However, the Geary County Sheriff's Office adamantly refused to search for any previous interactions with Grayson, claiming it would be illegal. The Junction City Police Department also claimed no records of encounter existed. But now, new details have surfaced surrounding the tragic events of July 6th, when Massey, a black woman, was fatally shot by Grayson after calling for help from the Sangamon County Sheriff's Department. Body camera footage revealed that not only did Grayson shoot Massey 3 times without just cause, but also discouraged his fellow deputy from providing immediate medical aid. In response to this blatant abuse of power, both President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris have called for further police reform. Meanwhile, Grayson has been charged with first-degree murder, aggravated battery with a firearm, and official misconduct, and is currently being held without bail at Menard County Jail. Following his arrest, former Deputy Sean Grayson was fired by Sangamon County Sheriff's Office. In a statement released by Sheriff Jack Campbell, it was made clear that Grayson's actions do not align with the values or training of their department. Sonya Massey's life was unjustly taken due to an irresponsible decision by former Deputy Sean Grayson, wrote Campbell. It has also been revealed that there were alternative options available to Grayson, which he failed to utilize before resorting to deadly force. Furthermore, it has been confirmed that Grayson's discharge from the military was not honorable, despite initial reports claiming otherwise. According to University of Illinois law professor Giotto, Grayson's official form listed his service as under honorable conditions, general, a confusing term for those unfamiliar with military jargon. In reality, Grayson was involuntarily discharged. Campbell concluded his statement by acknowledging that they were aware of Grayson's history of misconduct, including a DUI at the time of his hire. This raises the question, why was he ever given a badge and a gun in the first place? These are the difficult truths we must confront and address if we are to truly reform our flawed system. The sheriff's understanding seemed to hinge on a letter of recommendation from Grayson's former commander in the Army. In this letter, Ray Bennican wrote that aside from Grayson's DUI, there were no other issues during his service. However, further investigation has revealed that Grayson had not one, but 2 DUI convictions in Macoupin County in 2015 and 2016. While the Sangamon County Sheriff's Department claims to have been aware of these incidents, they still chose to hire him. Professor Giotto argues that a misdemeanor DUI conviction would hardly justify such serious misconduct findings from the Army. One of these DUIs occurred while Grayson was still serving, with the other taking place after his discharge. The public is outraged over this issue, prompting an online petition calling for Campbell's resignation, which has gained thousands of signatures. Massey's father has also spoken out against Campbell, demanding he step down. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who represents Massey's family, expressed shock at Grayson being hired despite a history of significant misconduct while in the Army. He raises valid concerns about what else may have been overlooked in the hiring process at the Sheriff's Department. When examining the disturbing video footage alongside Grayson's employment history, spanning 6 different law enforcement agencies in just 4 years, it becomes clear that there were numerous red flags. According to records, Grayson has served in 6 different police departments across central Illinois since 2020. It all began when Pawnee Police Department hired him part-time, although they have yet to respond to inquiries for comment. After a short stint at Pawnee PD, he was also employed by Kincaid Police Department on a part-time basis. Chief DJ Mathon reveals that Grayson was terminated from his position due to his refusal to comply with the village's requirement of living within a 10-mile radius. However, there were no complaints or disciplinary actions filed against him during his time there. Board of Trustees member Mike Lawrence watched the video of Grayson taking the life of Massey and was appalled, though not surprised. He recalls Grayson as an arrogant and reckless individual during his tenure at Kincaid PD. Following this, Grayson moved on to Verdon Police Department, where he worked for 7 months with no official complaints or disciplinary actions on record. The department claims to have no documentation of any background investigations conducted prior to his hiring. Dispatch Supervisor David Bounds reports that Grayson simply stopped showing up for shifts without giving notice of resignation. It was later discovered that he had accepted a full-time position with Auburn Police Department. To this day, Verdon PD has no disciplinary actions against Grayson recorded. In July of 2021, Grayson joined Auburn Police Department as a fresh-faced recruit, eager to serve and protect. He remained there until May of 2022, when he received an offer from Logan County Sheriff's Office that he could not refuse. When asked for comment on his sudden departure, Auburn Department chose not to respond. However, public records revealed the truth. Grayson had resigned from Auburn effective May 1, 2022, in order to take up a full-time position at Logan County. Among these records was a familiar document, the Federal DD Form 214 detailing Grayson's dishonorable discharge from the Army for serious misconduct. Andrew Jarmer, the city attorney, brushed off any concerns about this discovery. He claimed to have no knowledge of it during that time. But as it turns out, in his application for employment at Auburn, Grayson proudly claimed to be a veteran of the Army, conveniently omitting any mention of his less than honorable discharge. And when pressed about the details of said discharge, he simply responded with one word: honorable. After his short stint at Auburn, Grayson went on to work for Logan County and eventually landed a position as a deputy at Sangamon County in May 2023. The Logan County Sheriff's Office also remained tight-lipped when faced with inquiries and requests under the Freedom of Information Act. Retired Police Sergeant Giotto expressed deep concern over these revelations, stating that any responsible department would think twice before hiring someone who had been discharged from the military for serious misconduct. And yet, somehow, Grayson was able to continue his career in law enforcement without facing any consequences or repercussions. A blatant reflection of our flawed system and its skewed priorities.